So, you've just started playing Rise of Kingdoms for the first time, or you're thinking of getting back into it after a long hiatus. Join me for the most recent and updated beginner's guide for how to do well in Rise of Kingdoms. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms gameplay video from your very own Shappy Gaming. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Shappy, and I am a sponsored Rise of Kingdoms content creator who's here to help you do the best you possibly can in Rise of Kingdoms. Today, we are going to be talking about how to have the best start possible in Rise of Kingdoms. So there are a lot of things that you're going to want to keep in mind about this, but let's start from the beginning. When you're creating your account, there are a couple things that you can do before you even start the game. And the first is actually triggering the welcome back event. So if you started the game a long time ago and you've just gotten back into it, you can actually access an old account and get some sweet bonuses by doing so. So what's interesting here is if you restart a new kingdom from an old account, you'll actually get some great rewards, and you can pick which alliance and kingdom you want to be in advance. This is a really big deal because jumper groups are one of the best ways to get started in Rise of Kingdoms, and who doesn't love a little bit of extra resources and gems when you are starting the game? But maybe that's not something for you. So let's actually jump into the first time experience when starting Rise of Kingdoms, and I'll walk you through some of the things that you're going to want to keep in mind. Everyone's Rise of Kingdoms journey begins with this screen. And sure, you have a little animation, but you may be wondering, which civilization do I choose when I'm starting Rise of Kingdoms for the first time? And the answer is simple. The best civilization that you're going to want to choose to start out is probably going to be China because of this building speed bonus of 5%. That said, if you don't want to be China, there are a couple other options. You can also be Egypt, which has building and research speed by 1.5%, which should also be a nice bonus early on. Now, that said, typically, you're going to be starting with 2 accounts, not 1. And the reason for that is you want to be creating yourself a farm account when you go ahead and you create your main account. There are a bunch of different reasons for this, but the simplest is with 1 account in Rise of Kingdoms, you typically cannot get enough resources to grow as quickly as you might want to. The other thing is, early on, there is a lot of RNG that happens, whether it be gold keys or different events or things like that. And you may want to switch which is your main and which is your farm. So always start with 2 accounts if you can. It's very easy to create a second account, and it will help you early on. For your farm account, you're actually probably going to want to use a different civilization. And you have 2 main options. The first of which is really going to be France. And this is because you can get Joan of Arc for free, and Joan of Arc is going to be the best gathering commander that you can get in the early game. Once you reach a certain level, I believe it's City Hall level 10, you will have the opportunity to change your civilization. At that point, you're going to want to change your civilization to Japan, because Japan has a 5% resource gathering speed, and it does not change your starting commander when you change these civilizations. Just for fun, let's start with Egypt. So now, here we go. We have this lovely animation. We're going to skip it, and let's get into the game, because there are some things that you're going to want to do early on to help maximize everything you can in Rise of Kingdoms. So we do have our lovely guide who's going to walk us through how to build everything. Let me skip the intro and get to the part where you are actually in the game. Okay, so we're in the game, we skipped the intro, and now we are probably where you may be. Now, another thing I want to make sure I call out, your starting civilization also dictates who your starting commander is. And you may want to decide early on whether you want to be infantry, cavalry, or archers for your troop unit. Personally, I've chosen archers here. Infantry is easier if you are planning on being free to play, and cavalry is absolutely really good if you want to spend, because you can buy Minamoto no Yoshitsune right off the bat using VIP. So as you can see here, you could spend $1 to get Minamoto unlocked, and you can use him at 5515. And if you don't know what that means, these are actually going to be skills. Every commander has skills. Epic commanders have their own heads that are required for upgrading your skills, whereas legendary commanders have a different kind of gold head that is required for upgrading theirs. Now, typically, you want to be sure that you are maxing all of these commanders before you move on to a next one. What I've seen a lot of people do is they'll get a commander to maybe 5, 1, 1, 1, and then move on to another one. Typically, I advise not doing that, and especially if you're looking at legendary commanders, be very careful as to who you invest in. I do have a guide on the top right side of the screen for you, which talks all about the best commanders for KVK1 and KVK2 and beyond. Hopefully that should help you guys out. Now, it's essential that I call out that for an epic commander, it requires 440 epic commander sculptures to max them. For a legendary commander, it requires 690 legendary sculptures to max them. So just be very careful when you are spending your sculptures that you do not spend less than it takes to max a commander and then move on to another commander. Now you may be wondering, Shappy, what is all this other stuff? So let's talk about it. The star level equates to how your commander's skills are unlocked. As soon as a commander reaches 4 stars, they will unlock their 4th skill. That 5th skill is actually going to be restricted until they are expertised. In other words, until you have maxed all of the other skills. Now, getting a commander to level 40 is not all that difficult, and level 40 is what's required for unlocking that 4th star, typically. Now, in order to do that, you need to use XP tomes. XP tomes you can get from a variety of different ways, but the main way you're going to get these is going to be through barbarians, and you can get XP from defeating guardians on different structures, be it an altar, a shrine, or anything like that on the world map. Now, you're also probably wondering, what are these things? Archer, garrison, and support. These provide insight into what each commander's specialties are. So for example, Imhotep is an archer commander. Minamoto is a cavalry commander. But there are also these secondary skills. Garrison and calls out that a commander can defend your city when you're being attacked. Now, typically you want to avoid your city getting attacked altogether, but you do want to have commanders that specialize in garrison assigned to your wall. So that's a pro tip for you if you're wondering how those talents work. The last of which is support, and this is going to be their field skills, and each commander has different specialties in the field. So what you'll notice is Imhotep has a support tree, whereas Markswoman has a skill tree. This is really important because these trees affect your commander's talents. Now, what are talents, you may be wondering? Talents can be assigned to different places within your commander, depending upon the specialty you want to invest in. Now, for most of your commanders, you'll find that you're typically investing in the field specialties like support or skill damage or attack or defense. And that's going to be this tree on the right. And you do get talent points depending upon the level of your commander. The higher the level, the more talent points you're going to get. And there are a number of different talent trees that you can use. I do have some posted in my Discord if you want to check that to figure out which is going to be the best. But the way talents work is they provide essentially sub-skills to your commanders as you're running them. And it is worth noting that the talent tree only applies to the primary commander in a march. As soon as your commander hits 3 stars, you can run multiple commanders together. So just bear in mind that that first commander is going to be what's most important. Now you may remember that I called out that Joan is a really good gathering commander. Well, what you'll see here is that Joan has the gathering specialty. And when you invest in Joan, you're primarily going to want to level her to level 37. You do not need to take any gathering commanders above level 37. That is the maximum you need to max the gathering tree. So if we take a look at Imhotep, here's his tree over here. If you're using gathering, it's going to be this tree. I can flash up a picture for you right now. But let's take a look at my main account so I can tell you about armaments and equipment. As you progress in Rise of Kingdoms, you will have new functionalities unlocked, including equipment and armaments. And these are two main things that'll really diversify how you can use your commanders in combat. Now, for now, you don't need to worry about this, but as soon as you unlock smithing, this is going to become important to you, and you are going to want to check my video on the top right corner, which walks you through what the best bang for your buck equipment sets are for you. As for armaments, this is really all about RNG, and you're primarily going to want to pick a formation that helps depending upon the troop that you are using. So if you're using a commander with high skill damage, you're probably going to want to use a wedge formation. Now, that's it for commanders. Let's jump back to our new account to walk you through barbarians and open field combat. Now, another reason why people really like Sun Tzu and the China civilization is because of barbarians. And you may be like, Shappy, what do you mean? Well, one of the things you may have noticed is you have something called action points. Action points are your activity points that you get, and you can use these both by killing barbarians and by joining fort rallies. Now, typically you want to make sure that you're using your action points every single day and you're using them up. And the reason for that is this is one of the best ways to get ahead in the early game, because as you can see, barbarians actually give you great rewards. And the higher level the barbarian, the better rewards that you're going to be getting. And people like Sun Tzu because one of the things you'll notice is his primary skill actually triggers an AoE effect. AoE stands for area of effect. And what this means is if you're attacking one barbarian and another barbarian happens to walk into that fan shape, you can actually attack that other barbarian for 0 action points. This is called chaining, and it is something that is used very often to help maximize your resources and your action points from day to day. But that's not the only thing that's going to be important. One of the best commanders for killing barbarians in the early game is actually going to be Lohar. And Lohar you'll get through a nice event that comes along. You can get Lohar necklaces from killing barbarians, and he is going to be one of the best early game commanders for you for barbarians and forts. Do not use him in PvP combat. He will not do well for you. But Lohar will help you get all of your other commanders stronger because he gets bonus experience from defeating barbarians. Combine that with his peacekeeping talent tree, and you've got a really nice setup to kill barbarians quickly and to level up all of your other commanders. You do want to max Lohar as soon as possible, but I would not use your universal epic heads on Lohar. I think typically you want to get his heads through Lohar's trial, which should be available very early on in the game. Even now, I'm in the first couple days of the kingdom, and there are tons of different events coming up, and Lohar's trial is the next day. So that's how you want to get Lohar, and you definitely want to make sure you're using him. Now, another thing that's going to be super important early game is joining the right alliance. What does this mean? Well, there are a lot of alliances in Rise of Kingdoms, and in the early days of your kingdom, you want to make sure that you are getting in a top-rated alliance. Do not wait to join an alliance. The reason you want to get in a top-rated alliance is when someone spends in Rise of Kingdoms, you will get something called chests, and these chests will give you lots of great benefits and different rewards. So you can see that in the gift section. The more people spend, the more gifts you're going to get, which is going to help you grow faster in this game, and it'll help you do well in the long term, and you may even have to spend less money. That said, Rise of Kingdoms is totally free to play, and you can do great as a free to play player, and if you want to spend, you can as well. But that's not the only reason that being in a good alliance is important. If we come into my main account, you can see that within this alliance, there are helps, and your alliance center can actually grow as you do, and with it, you can get more helps. Now, the way these helps work is each help you get will fill the progress bar of either a research or a build, and it'll give you by either 1% or a minimum of 1 minute of those helps. So this is actually going to tangibly help you grow in Rise of Kingdoms quicker, and it will save you speed ups, which is one of the reasons why I tell you to join an alliance as soon as you can, because these helps will reduce a lot of the early technologies and a lot of the early building times pretty substantially. But that's not all. If you come into the shop, one of the things you'll also notice is that you can get these things called individual credits. You can get individual credits a number of different ways, but in an alliance, you can get speed ups in exchange for those credits, or you can get basic army expansions, or you can get XP tomes or VIP points. all of which can help you grow faster, especially earlier on in the game when you really want to make sure that you can get to VIP 10, VIP 12, and VIP 14 as fast as you possibly can. Now, there are also a bunch of events in Rise of Kingdoms. There's Mightiest Governor event, there's Gold Head events, and these events can be really appealing, right? Mightiest Governor means I want to go ahead and I want to compete against other players. Let's switch to my main account just to show you guys what that event looks like and provide some insight as to why you probably don't want to compete in it in the early game. We're in. Now, the Mightiest Governor is an event that occurs just about every 2 weeks, and it's comprised of 6 stages, and all participating governors can gain points throughout these stages. The first stage is going to be training, the second stage is going to be barbarians, the third stage is going to be gathering, fourth is going to be power, and fifth is going to be kill event. Now, kill event is going to be a little scary if you're early on in the game because that is all about combat. Now, if you're just starting out, odds are pretty high you should not be competing in Mightiest Governor. Save your resources, don't train a lot in the early game, because the more troops you train, the more you're going to have to upgrade later. So just bear in mind, Mightiest Governor is probably not the best event to compete in because A, a lot of people compete, and B, the rewards are not that great long term. What I would recommend you compete in is actually the Gold Head events. So there are separate events that come along which reward you for pushing power or pushing tech or things like that. I would recommend competing in those because A, they're less competitive, and B, you get universal gold heads, which you can save for later on in game. Last but not least, there are a couple things that I think I want to make sure I call out for you guys so you don't make the same mistakes I've made in the past. And the first of that is actually going to be power. Do not get too caught up in this number that you see here that is your power. Some alliances will require that you have a high power to get into them, but at the end of the day, your power is not necessarily truly representative of how quickly you're growing in Rise of Kingdoms. In fact, a lot of players will actually hold off on pushing power in order to push Zenith of power and put up 30 million power at once. What instead I'd suggest you do is think about where you need to be investing the most value. So let's start by talking about which structures are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck when we talk about upgrades. And you do need to bear in mind, we do have upgrade dependencies here. So the first thing that you want to focus on is your academy. This is going to be how you invest in technology. And as your academy levels up, so too does your ability to research a lot of technologies quickly. So typically, I'd say you want to get your academy up as fast as possible. Whenever you hit a new city hall level, get your academy up a level as well. If you can, that also means holding off on technologies that you may not need to invest in right away. So I know it can be super tempting to go ahead and go all in on military technology in the early game, but if I'm being honest, you probably don't want to, and you also probably don't need to. Your best bet in terms of optimization is actually going to be to go in on your economic technology. And no, I'm not talking about your farming tech, though if you do explore villages, they will give you some of these for free. What I'm more alluding to is actually going to be like the masonry technology or the writing technology. Those techs are going to put you ahead in terms of your speed of growth. You can also invest in the engineering technology, in the mathematics technology. If you can, focus on those technologies first because they will help you to grow faster for cheaper. At the end of the day, the most finite resources you have in Rise of Kingdoms are actually going to be your speed ups. And speed ups are a little bit harder to come by than resources. You can always send out gatherers and get resources, but once you run out of speed ups, you're kind of out of speed ups for a little while. And I do not recommend that you use your main finite currency, which is gems, on those speed ups. Typically, I recommend saving gems for any instance where you can get gold heads or you can get legendary materials. Those are going to be the two best uses of your gems. But what this means is, for your academy, focus on the technologies that are going to put you ahead in terms of building and research and upgrades before you invest in your military technology, unless your kingdom is going to war. But typically, that's not the case these days. Now, there are a couple other things you want to keep in mind. I mentioned the Alliance Center earlier. The more times you can get help, the better optimization you're going to have. Now, another thing you want to keep in mind is on your farm, you want to get your trading post up to the highest level you possibly can, because this is going to dictate what the tax rate is for when you transfer resources from your farm to your main account. Do not forget to create a farm account, and definitely don't forget to upgrade your trading post, because that's going to be essential to your success in this game. Last but not least, be sure to have fun in Rise of Kingdoms. It is a great mobile game. I've been playing this game for over 2,000 days now, not including this account, and I've had a blast. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. My goal is to help you succeed in Rise of Kingdoms, whether you're a new player, whether you're an old player. Let me know what you need in the comment section below, and be sure to check out the playlist that's going to be linked above my head. It has all sorts of other guides for events and for tech and things like that that may help you out. If you've enjoyed, be sure to drop a like on the video and hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right hand corner, and hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out. Thank you all. Shappy out.